to the basics of baseball, except today we're kind of changing it up a bit. Today we're calling it the basics of broadcasting, with me and my star guest today, Sam Levitt, the voice of the Sod Poodles. I've got like an entire paper filled with questions. Okay. So, the first question is, what do you do for a living?
I am a TV and radio sports broadcaster. I do both play-by-play and hosting.
That's cool. What school did you go to?
I went to Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois.
What sports do you or have you broadcasted?
That's a great question. I've done a lot of different sports. In total, I've done baseball, basketball, football, lacrosse, soccer, softball, volleyball. Have I done anything else? I've never done wrestling. I've never done field hockey. I've never done hockey. I think it's 7. I think those are the 7 right there that I think it's 7. So those are all the ones I've done. Yeah.
As a sports broadcaster, what is it like to call a game? What emotions or feelings are involved?
Well, there are a lot of emotions. Number one, it's a very exciting job. It's a job where you get to watch sports and help people create memories when they watch games and they listen to games and create a connection between the team and the fans, which is really special. So there's a lot of excitement. It's watching sports, and you get to talk and call those really big moments and plays and cover the exciting things that come with sports. But also, there, as far as other emotions, there's a lot of focus that's involved day to day and moment to moment. Anticipation. I mean, there's no feeling like getting ready for a game and the feeling of when people are walking into the ballpark and everything is getting set for first pitch and everything's going on in the stadium or in a basketball arena. There's a lot of anticipation and excitement that you get from that. So that's a great question. There are a lot of different emotions, and sometimes you even have disappointment. If a game doesn't go the way you want it to, not that you necessarily root for teams, but certainly with a team like the Sod Poodles, I'd rather see them win than see them lose as their broadcaster. So there's a lot of different emotions, both exciting and disappointing, and sometimes even I'll get nervous for a game, or maybe nervous isn't the right emotion, maybe anxious, jittery for certain games and certain broadcasts, but that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes I think it's good to be a little anxious and a little jittery before a game because it means you care about it and it means a lot to you. So there are a number of different emotions that you have before a game and throughout the game.
Yeah. How do you prepare before a game? Do you have notes in front of you, or do you look at a roster?
I do. I have lots of notes in front of me. I also look at rosters. So I actually have right here, I can show you right here an example. So for baseball, what I use. And for baseball, I do it quite different than other sports. But for baseball, let me get to a good page here. So for baseball, I use something like this, a scorebook, and you'll see I have all different kinds of notes written down. Now for basketball, I don't have it right with me, but for basketball, football, volleyball, everything else I do, it looks quite different. But yes, there's a ton of prep work and many notes and many stats and many research I do on my own that I use for every game. So during baseball season, it's a little bit different because I'm covering a team every day and doing the same team every day. So your preparation looks a little bit different because you know so much about those players naturally from covering them every day. But during basketball and football and volleyball and all these different sports with different teams I do, every game I prepare a lot. I mean, there's probably a couple of days of preparation that go into every game that I do. Baseball's a little bit different because you're doing it every day, but I'm looking at rosters, I'm looking at charts I make myself, I'm looking at notes that are provided to me, notes that I have myself, different things on each player that I have written down. So yeah, there's a lot of preparation and a lot of notes and a lot of information I use for every single game I do.
That seems like a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's fun, and it's important because when you go to talk for 3, sometimes 4 hours a night, you have to have something to talk about and something to discuss during the game. And also, it's very important to be prepared and know what you're talking about. In a lot of ways, during these games, I'm supposed to be the expert on the team. I'm supposed to be the expert on the game. So it's very important that I'm well prepared and that I write down notes and that I research before a game, because there should be nobody that knows it as well as I do.
Yeah. How is calling a basketball game different than calling a baseball game?
That's a great question. Well, they're two very different sports and obviously two very different paces to each sport. So baseball is slow, right? And I mean slow in a good way, but it's methodical. It just has a certain pace and a certain rhythm to it. It's a slower game. So the way you call baseball is quite different than the way you call basketball, because basketball is fast. It's high energy, really, from the opening tip to the final buzzer. Baseball is very different because it's every day and it's slower and it's more methodical. So when I'm calling baseball, my goal is to be excited at the right moments, but I also want to keep a level of relaxation to it, of ease to the broadcast. Because what I imagine when somebody's watching or listening to baseball, especially on the radio, and Mollee, you might have experience with this, listening at home to Sod Poodles games or seeing, dad or mom listen to Sod Poodles games. I envision somebody usually just kind of hanging out listening to a baseball game, enjoying their night listening to a baseball game, or doing something and listening to the game. The reality is that people are in and out. Rarely does somebody listen to an entire 3-4 hour baseball game, but they come in and out. So I try to keep that in mind and have a very relaxed nature to it. And most of baseball broadcasting is very, very chill, is very relaxed. It's just pitch by pitch, and it stays very level at a very kind of low energy point, which is part of the reason I love baseball, is that it has that nature to it. And then you need to be ready to get to the excitement when it comes. For basketball, it's really different. A college basketball game, which is what I do, especially during normal times when we have big crowds and it's loud, there's a lot of energy throughout the whole game, and the game is fast. So you want to be able to match that energy from the opening minute. And it doesn't mean that you're going crazy. It doesn't mean that you use the same amount of energy in the first quarter as you do in the fourth quarter when the game is really tight and really tense. But overall, the amount of energy, high energy, I should say, is different in a basketball game when you're calling it really throughout the entire game. So they're quite different because the sports are so different and have just different energy levels, throughout the game. But my level of preparation, my level of focus doesn't change between the two or throughout the game. But the way you approach it, the way you speak, the way you treat it is quite different.
Growing up, did you enjoy watching sports or participating in sports?
I did both. I watched a ton of baseball. I was a huge New York Mets fan growing up. My dad was a huge Mets fan. My grandma was a huge Mets fan. So I grew up watching Mets games, and I loved the Mets. I was obsessed with the Mets growing up. They were my everything. I didn't watch a ton of other sports, to be honest, outside baseball when I was growing up. I mean, I watched a little football, a little basketball, but I was a baseball kid first, 100%. And grew up a huge, huge, huge Mets fan. I didn't really get into college basketball, college football until I got into college and had to start calling the games. So I was a baseball kid growing up, absolutely. I played baseball growing up. I played tennis growing up. I still play tennis to this day. I played pickup basketball. I still play basketball. I still love having a catch and playing baseball or softball when I can. But the two sports I played for real when it came to high school or playing it on a more serious level were baseball and tennis. And I wasn't particularly great at baseball. I was okay. I was probably a little bit better at tennis growing up, and I still am. But I enjoyed it, and both were really good to play when I was growing up.
What fueled you to be a sports broadcaster?
So I was not somebody who in middle school or high school or when I was little who dreamed of being a sportscaster. It wasn't something that was on my radar until I got to college. And when I got to college, I got involved at our student radio station, WNUR, and started doing it, started being on air, started hosting some shows, and really fell in love with it and decided to pursue it as a career and switch my major in school at college to the School of Journalism and really go after it 100%. So, you know, you hear a lot of times with sports announcers that it's something they knew they wanted to do from a really early age. That really wasn't me. I think subconsciously it was there for me in the sense that I always loved sports. I always loved listening to baseball on the radio. I always loved consuming different types of media when it came to sports. And even in high school, I was on the high school newspaper. You know, I had internships over the summers in high school at a newspaper where I grew up and took some classes at New York University during high school that were journalism related. So it was always kind of there for me. But what really sparked it was when I went to Northwestern and went to college and started doing it and realized it was something I really enjoyed and really loved and really wanted to pursue. And that's my story. That's how I got into it, and I'm still into it to this day.
What level of baseball have you announced for?
So I've done a few different levels of baseball. So like you know, Mollee, I do AA now with the Sod Poodles. I've done 2 teams at AA. So I worked for the Corpus Christi Hooks, the AA team of the Houston Astros, who the Sod Poodles play now. I worked for them in 2017 and 2018 before I went to Amarillo. But I've done a number of different levels of baseball as well. And it began with doing college baseball at Northwestern. And I actually still do college baseball. In fact, this weekend I have Illinois State against Missouri. So I still do college baseball to this day in addition to my work at AA. But I also called games in the Cape Cod Baseball League, which is a summer collegiate league for college players. I did that in 2012 and 2013. And then before I went to Corpus Christi to work at AA, I spent 3 years working in independent pro baseball in the Frontier League with the Gateway Grizzlies in 2014, 2015, and 2016. And those are all the different levels that I've broadcast baseball.
Interesting. When you are pronouncing a name during a game, are you ever worried that you're mispronouncing it?
That's a good question. I hope not. Part of one of the very basic but very important jobs of being a sports broadcaster is knowing how to pronounce the names. Now, usually you get at least some sort of pronunciation guide from the teams that will tell you how to pronounce a name that might be difficult to pronounce or looks a certain way but is pronounced another way, or, you know, isn't something like a name like your name, right? Your last name is Rushing, right? I'd look at that name and I would say, okay, that I know how to pronounce that. That won't usually be in a pronunciation guide unless it's a different pronunciation than what you would assume. But you don't always get a pronunciation guide. So if I don't get a pronunciation guide, then what I have to do is figure it out. So what does figuring it out mean? Well, it might mean talking to the team before the game, talking to the coaches. I've even had to speak with players on the team before a game to figure out what the pronunciations are. There are cases where maybe you see a name and you have to say it on air and you're not sure how to pronounce it. You try to avoid those, but does it happen? It does in weird circumstances. But you know, I try to avoid that. I try to know how to pronounce everybody's name before the game starts. And that's one of the very basic jobs of being an announcer, is knowing how to pronounce people's names and making sure you get them right. But like I said, there are weird situations every now and then where maybe you might be forced to just guess and you might get it wrong. But hopefully you try to avoid a situation like that, and you can avoid that by doing as much work as you can before the game on figuring out how to pronounce the names.
Yeah, you say it and you hope you get it right. Do you have nicknames for the players out of all the sports you have called? And and do players or coaches have a nickname for you? And what is one that has stuck the most?
So as far as my nicknames for players, that's a good question. I'm trying to think over the years if I've ever done that. No, I wouldn't personally on air create a nickname for a player, or at least I have not done it to this point in my career. I'll pick up what his teammates, call a player. Is there a nickname that they have already? Is there a nickname that the teammates call that player? Then sure, maybe I'll pick it up. I'll talk about it on air. I'll adopt it. But, I try to avoid giving anybody a nickname. It's not my place to decide what I call them. And I can't think of a time in my career so far where I've done that on my own. Now, if it's something that's developing with the team over the course of a season, or just what they call them from the first day the player gets there, then that's different. But I don't, that's not really my style to create a nickname for somebody, unless it's something just kind of funny that, I use every once in a while to refer to something or a situation or something like that. As far as a nickname for me, that's a good question. Not really. There's one in Amarillo that our old manager, Philip Wellman, used to say, and some other people have said it. I'm almost ashamed and embarrassed to even say it. But that was Prince of the Panhandle, which I don't really think is my nickname. I think is more of a joke. But people call me Sammy, which is not a nickname. That's just my name. They call me Sammy Lev, kind of for my social media handles and a mix of my name. But there's never been a real, legitimate nickname I've had that people call me by, or that I'm known by, or that people address me by. They call me Sam or Sammy, or sometimes Sammy Lev, and that's about it. So I would say no. I've never had a legitimate nickname. Maybe there's a couple floating out there that people kind of jokingly refer me to, but I've never had one that's really stuck or been something that the team or a manager or anybody else has really called me day to day.
What is your favorite 2019 Sod Poodle?
My favorite 2019 Sod Poodle. Well, I'll say this. I wouldn't say I have a favorite player, to be honest. And that's part of the job, Mollee, is I think as a broadcaster, maybe internally I could say like who my favorite player is, but I'm not a fan. Now, I am a fan of baseball, and I'm definitely a baseball fan. Let me rephrase this because I don't think I put it great. Of course, I'm a baseball fan. I'll always be a fan of the game. But when I'm working, when I'm calling a game, I'm no longer a fan. I'm a broadcaster, and you have to treat it that way. So I wouldn't say that I have favorite players of a team I cover, because my job is not to be a fan. My job is not to have a favorite. My job is to broadcast the game and cover it objectively. Again, I'm the Sod Poodles broadcaster, but it's not like I'm rooting for the Sod Poodles. There is that line. Is it nicer? Does it make my job more fun if the Sod Poodles win? Absolutely. It makes, when we go win a championship, of course it makes my job more fun. I hope we do that every year. But, my job during a game especially is not to be a fan. It's to call the game and do it as pretty much objectively as possible. And when the team does something good, I say they do something good. When the team does something not good, I have to be able to say the team does something not good too. So, I don't have a favorite, but I will say, as far as the 2019 Sod Poodle team, we were very, very lucky to have a team full of great guys, great personalities, great players. And I enjoyed getting to know all the players and the coaches and our manager and our staff. Just a great group of people. And so I'll say this, they are all my favorites from 2019. I won't single out one, but overall it was a really great group of guys.
What do you do when you're not broadcasting sports?
Well, especially during baseball season, there isn't a ton of time to do a lot, but other things I like to do when I'm not working. I love music. I love listening to music. I like going to concerts when I can. I enjoy watching TV when I can. I enjoy, watching YouTube videos about random things when I can. I like traveling. I'm a big traveler. I've taken some really awesome trips over the years, and that's something I want to continue doing once this pandemic is settled down. And I'm looking forward to getting back to traveling and trying to take at least one big trip per baseball off season. That's something I'd really like to continue doing. I like going to coffee shops during normal times. I love working in coffee shops and also spending time with friends and going out to eat and trying different restaurants. So those are some of the things I like to do when I'm not working. It's nothing too crazy, but I definitely have a lot of interest outside of sports and outside of my job.
I just sit around and watch TV.
That's okay.
Do you play video games?
I do not. So a fun story is that I never had a video game console growing up. My parents were not fans of video games. Were not fans of Pokemon cards, which Mollee, you probably don't know what those are, but those were all the rage when I was growing up. But we didn't have video games growing up. I've never had an Xbox or a PlayStation. I played them, at friends' houses growing up. My brother, he lives in Los Angeles. He has a PlayStation now, so we'll play. But I've never had one myself. So no, I really do not play any video games. I'll play them, if I'm at somebody else's house and just to do it for fun. But I'm not a serious video game player at all. My parents are very very school oriented. Homework oriented, and if I was going to spend time doing anything, it was do my schoolwork and play sports and get involved in extracurricular activities. That we were not. I was not allowed to have a video game console, which and nothing against anybody who plays video games, but I was fine with me, and I think I came out all right without video games growing up.
I have an entire box of Pokemon cards. I heard you like coffee. What kind of coffee do you like?
Well, I like iced coffee. I like hot coffee. I like, like chai tea lattes. I like vanilla lattes. I like a lot. This morning, if I still had it with me, I'd show you. I had a cold brew and I had some almond milk in there and a Splenda. But I pretty much like everything. I like espresso, and lattes and, kind of fancy drinks sometimes, or sometimes it's just basic and a cup of coffee will work. But I like a lot of different things when it comes to coffee.
When you visit a town, whether on the road or traveling during the off season, do you have a coffee shop, or is there one that sticks in your mind in each town?
That's a great question. Well, in Amarillo, I will tell you my favorite was Evocation Coffee, which closed. I guess it closed between 2019 and 2020 because it wasn't there when I got back in 2020. That was my favorite. In Amarillo, I like Palace Coffee, both locations. The one on, I forget what street that is, that it's on. And then the one downtown, I like that one. I also like, I actually like the Starbucks on Coulter. It's pretty new. I like that place a lot. I like Cliffside Coffee. There are a number of different places in Amarillo that I like a lot. I've enjoyed Roasters. I'm probably forgetting a name, so hopefully if they watch this, they don't get offended. But I like a bunch of different coffee places in Amarillo. As far as other cities, that's a great question. Yeah, I can list off some right now that I can remember off the top of my head because we didn't go there in 2020 to any of these places. But in Tulsa, I like a place called Chimera. It's in downtown Tulsa. I love going there, doing some work there, and then going to the ballpark, and I can walk over to the ballpark after. So that's in Tulsa. In Frisco, there's a place in Frisco. I can't remember what it's called. It might be called Nerdvana. I'm going to look that up right now. Is it Nerdvana in Frisco? Let me see. It's going to take me 2 seconds. Yeah, maybe not. I think it's called Nerdvana. Yeah, Nerdvana. I like Nerdvana in Frisco. It's right by where FC Dallas plays, by the soccer stadium. Other places, Springfield, Missouri, there's a great place there downtown. It's called Coffee Ethic, I think, is the place in Springfield. I like that one. Little Rock, Arkansas, where the Arkansas Travelers are. There's a place, I think it's called Mugs Cafe. I haven't been to these places in almost 2 years now, so I'm forgetting. Mugs Cafe, I like that place. There's a place in Midland I like. I'm not going to remember that name. Corpus Christi, Greenlight Coffee downtown. I lived in Corpus Christi for 2 years. There's a bunch of places. I'm a big fan, though, of Greenlight Coffee downtown. That's one of my go-to spots. And I'm probably forgetting a place or two on the road. But, yeah, that's how much I like them. I can remember the names from the different cities of where they are.
Now that the Sod Poodles are a AA affiliate for the Arizona Diamondbacks, are there any prospects that you are looking forward to seeing this year?
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to seeing, all the new guys. It's, to be honest, Mollee, I have a lot of homework to do in the next month and a half to get up to speed on a lot of these prospects and a lot of their stories and do my research on them. I'm still finishing up basketball season and doing my other work up here in the Chicago area and in the Midwest. So I still have a lot of homework to do as far as specific players, but I will tell you that in an overall sense, I'm super excited to see these new players, to have a new batch of players come in that we haven't seen in Amarillo. And what's really exciting is that a lot of these players are coming from some winning teams because with the Diamondback system, they won a championship in 2018 in Hillsborough. They won a championship in the California League in Visalia in 2019. I think there's a pretty good chance we'll have at least a handful of players from Visalia come to Amarillo this summer on opening day. I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know how many, but you would imagine there's a pretty good chance of that. So I'm excited to see all the new players and get to know a brand new system. And while it's challenging in some ways to join a new system and have to learn everything all over again, because when we're with the Padres year after year, sure, you're learning new players all the time, but you do have a sense of familiarity with the system and with the players and everything that comes with that minor league system and the 10,000-foot view of that system. Now I have to learn that with the Diamondbacks, but it's a challenge I'm excited for, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the new players we're going to have in Amarillo in 2021.
Okay, well, that's all the questions I have on my list, but I have one more question. Cookies or brownies?
Cookies or brownies? That's very tough. I'll say this about cookies and brownies. So brownies are great, but brownies I don't feel like are a dessert that I can eat a ton of. They're very rich. After a while, when I'm eating chocolate, I feel sick. I can't just eat brownies, for hours on end and have 10 brownies in one sitting. Cookies are a different story. Cookies, I could eat an entire sleeve, box of cookies, you name it. So for hours, I could finish off a whole thing of Oreos in one sitting. So I'm going to go with cookies, the slight edge, because they're a little bit they tend to be, not always, but a little bit less rich, and I can eat more cookies in a sitting than I can brownies. So I'm going to go give the slight edge to cookies.
Yeah, because me and my mom made brownies the other week for the Sod Poodle crew.
Oh, nice.
They really liked those.
Okay. Well, you know what? How about this for a deal? In exchange for this interview, how about this? At some point this season, maybe I can get some brownies or some cookies from you guys.
We'll make you some cookies.
Okay. That'll be our trade.
That'll work.
Do you have any questions for me?
Sure, Molly. Why do you like the Sod Poodles so much and baseball so much?
Well, when the baseball stadium was made and the team came into Amarillo, my dad bought season tickets to go see the baseball team because I had never been to a baseball game before, which is very surprising. So we went, and I really enjoyed it. Well, sort of. Didn't really pay attention, but... And then when the pandemic came and we got shut off from everything, me and my mom decided we need to do something baseball. So we made the basics of baseball to teach people about baseball.
That's good. That's a wonderful thing that you started the channel, and yeah, I was in the same boat trying to figure out things to do without baseball season. So that's wonderful. What are you looking forward to this summer with baseball back?
Looking forward to get another book of autographs.
Nice.
It's back here. This is my 2021 book. It's supposed to be 2020, but...
Very nice. Very nice. What's your favorite autograph in there?
I don't have any autographs in this one.
Okay. Well, what's your favorite autograph you got in 2019?
Probably Coach Wellman's.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully you can get one more of his if he comes back to Amarillo with another team.
Let's hope.
Well, very, very good, Molly. Well, it was great talking to you, and keep up the great work with the channel. Okay, I'll keep on watching.
Thank you.
All right, bye, Molly. Everybody else, Mom, Dad, be well. Thank you for having me.
They waved goodbye.
Okay, Molly. I'll talk to you later. I'll see you soon in Amarillo. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Sam, for this interview and helping me learn a little bit more about sports broadcasting. I hope you learned something too. Join us next time on the Basics of Baseball, where we'll be talking about the Chicago White Sox. Bye!
Nope. Oh no! Sissy's moving everywhere.
Oh no! He says I want to film.
Are you read a cricket?
I want to film Mommy.
You did a good job, Hockey.
Okay.